All right, 49ers practice here on Thursday is over. They've got one more half-speed session before flying out to Tampa Bay tomorrow early afternoon. And then it is the game against the Bucs and the start of the second half of the season. So that means it's a great time for both the 49ers roster update. We're going to take a look at the depth chart here and the 49ers salary cap update. Haven't done one of these in a little while, so we can take a look at both of those. First, though, want to update you on practice and everything that happened today for the 49ers. I did mention that Christian McCaffrey remains on a good track for San Francisco. No pain following Monday and Wednesday, back out at practice on Thursday. Richard Sherman believes that he'll have a sizable workload after speaking to McCaffrey himself. That workload will obviously come if everything continues along the current track against Tampa Bay on Sunday. So huge boost for the 49ers, who are a good offense, but they want to be a great offense. They're also a solid defense. They've been worse defensively than offensively. The metrics for the defense range anywhere between 6 and 12 or 14. Some of the metrics a little bit worse than the median of that. So the 49ers also looking for a little bit of a boost there, and they will hope to get it through some players returning here over the second half of the season. That's going to be Dre Greenlaw. I think that's the big hope for San Francisco and for fans who obviously love the linebacker who flies around the field, hits very hard, and is fast enough to be good in pass coverage. But Greenlaw will be coming off an Achilles injury, and the return for him is not yet going to be this week. It might be the week after or a couple weeks after that. The 49ers are treating it on a week-by-week basis. As far as practice today, no Chris Conley again. We expect him to be out at least this week, probably even a little bit more beyond that. They said week to week with the hamstring injury. Mooney Ward, Charvarius Ward, following the tragic death of his 1-year-old daughter, Amani Joy, not going to be around this week. That's very, very understandable. The funeral is in Dallas tomorrow for Amani Joy. So he was not again at practice today, and neither was Kevin Givens, who's dealing with a groin injury. So we can probably assume that Kevin Givens is not going to play on Sunday. And that leads me right into my 49ers roster update. We could even start there with the defensive line, because Givens' injury very clearly, and here, for those of you unfamiliar with the sheet, I'm going to highlight it right here. This is what we're looking at, the defensive line position. The injury to Kevin Givens is shaded here in pink. That clearly opens the door for Khalil Davis to contribute for the 49ers right off the bat, right after he was traded from the Houston Texans for a 2026 7th-round pick. I played some tape of Davis yesterday. He's got that quick burst off the line. He, is not 315 pounds anymore. That was the peak weight for Khalil Davis in his football career. I talked to him very briefly in the locker room. He has cut a little bit of weight since then. But what that's meant is that the explosion has been there in full force for Khalil Davis. And we've seen a lot of it on the tape with the Houston Texans. First, you'll see a run stop here. Explosion. I mean, gets to the ball carrier immediately after the handoff. Working against a tackle there who couldn't come down and block Khalil Davis in time. That's nice stuff. This is going to be a quarterback hit against the Tennessee Titans. Just swims his way past the guard. Again, impressive explosion right off the ball for Khalil Davis. And he's somebody that the 49ers can really use in the defensive line room, because they haven't been as deep as they've wanted to be, especially against the run. But even if you're trying to play the run, you've got to maintain some pass rushing ability. And I think that the measurables of Khalil Davis, the 4.75 40, the 1.66 10-yard split, you saw some of that on display in the tape, will really help the 49ers in this D tackle rotation. Evan Anderson just got called up from the practice squad. He is now a full-time 53-man roster player. And although he's going to be somebody that the 49ers are really enjoying to develop right now, I mean, he's somebody that's already contributed 4 pressures, 26 pass rushing snaps, big 320, 330-pound frame. The rookie, I think, is still not an every down type of player and an every game type of, big load contributor. So you can continue working Evan Anderson in slowly if you're the 49ers. And somebody like Khalil Davis, who's already been in the league for a few years, who was getting about 19 snaps a game for the Houston Texans before the 49ers traded for him. You saw his tape there. I think he can be your natural fill-in for Kevin Givens if Givens is indeed unable to play due to the groin injury. Khalil Davis is still developing too. So Khalil Davis can split some snaps with Evan Anderson. The bottom line is that you need more of these bodies at defensive tackle who are capable so that you can improve against the run. That's the main thing. The 49ers run defense has not been good, number 23 in the NFL. So that's where Davis fits in. The biggest weakness of this football team is the run defense. If they can ameliorate that, move it up into the middle of the pack, using some of the newfound depth in the interior, you have to notice that the 49ers, they've given up the most in the run game late in games. I know it was really hot against the Arizona Cardinals about a month ago, right? It was over 100 degrees down on the field, but it was the final couple drives where Arizona was finally able to grind out some productivity in the run game. And that tells me that the 49ers just need to be deeper and deeper in the rotation. More quality guys on the back end will make them better against the run as these games progress. And I think that somebody like Khalil Davis can help them do that. You look at the rest of the defensive line room for the 49ers. Bosa today, by the way, left practice a little early. Matt Barrows noticed that. He was there for the warm-ups and the part that the media, most of the part that the media watches. But Bosa has been limited with a hip injury in practice. That's what he's been listed with. Did walk off the field a little bit early. The media doesn't watch the vast majority of practice, though, so it's hard to tell if Nick Bosa returned or if he didn't. We'll get a little bit more on Bosa tomorrow. At this point, I mean, he's been listed as limited a couple times already this year, and it hasn't come close to compromising his ability to play on Sunday. So that's not something I would ring an alarm bell for. It's just something that I will update you on. Bosa currently is leading the league in pressures in obvious pass rushing situations. He's having a good season. He's anchoring down one of those sides of the line from the edge rushing position. And I think that Leonard Floyd has been a lot better than people give him credit for. He's been in the upper half of pass rushers in terms of pass rushing productivity. Somebody who's been really damn good, though, even better than Floyd in terms of the productivity per snap, has been Sam Okawanu. That said, there's only 3 of these guys that are producing at a plus level from the edge rushing position right now. And that's why Yetur Gross-Matos' return, which might come this week, but might not come until the week after that. His practice window has been open. That can really help the edge rushing position. If you guys have any questions on the defensive end edge rushing spot, let me know. I'll hop into the question section. What we're doing is a full roster breakdown here. So we're going to go position by position. I think that the defensive line is in a solid spot, especially since they added right before the trade deadline with Khalil Davis. They've got to get a little bit better against the run, but the pass rushing has scored well so far this season for the 49ers. So let's see what everybody's up to. I'm hopping into the comment section right now. Mike says it seems like the defense is about to hit its stride. I would have to say that that's possible. It seemed that for much of the game against Dallas, they did hit their stride, and then the Cowboys were able to get some big yardage there late in the comeback attempt. You look at what happened in the comeback attempt, a couple defensive backs collided for one of the CeeDee Lamb touchdowns. There was a blown coverage. You could say, oh, that was a fluke. It won't happen again, but you still have to chalk it up as a concern that the 49ers have to clean up. My main thing is rest for a defense. I think rest is so important on the defensive side of the ball. And the 49ers are about to come out of their bye week. Last year when they came out of their bye week, they dominated Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville from the defensive side of the ball. So can the same happen this year coming out of the bye week against a Tampa team that's going to be more tired? I think it has to happen. I think if it doesn't happen, then you could raise serious concerns about the 49ers' defensive ability to truly hit a stride and truly get up into that top 5 this season. I think that this week is everything is laid out there for them. The table is set. It's beautiful. The food looks good, and the 49ers have to go eat defensively. I mean, we can look at the linebacker position too and talk about where the 49ers are there. Warner obviously delivering at an all-pro level. Devondre Campbell has been, I think, about what we expected him to be. He's a fill-in linebacker who hasn't been great in coverage, has been a little bit better against the run. Yes, he's missed some tackles. Yes, he's had some struggles in space. He's just holding on to that number 2 spot until the 49ers get Dre Greenlaw back. Unfortunately for San Francisco, D. Winters hasn't risen up to the point where he can just seize that number 2 spot. Jalen Graham has always been somebody that they've viewed lower than D. Winters on the pecking order. In fact, they waived Graham the other day and re-signed him to the practice squad, so he's over there on the right side. Flanagan Foles is Flanagan Foles. He's a special teams guy who can fill in a pinch. But the big question prior to the return of Dre Greenlaw had been, would D. Winters usurp Devondre Campbell to help the 49ers fill the gap in what might be the biggest weakness on their defense at the linebacker 2 spot, and it hasn't happened. So Tatum Bethune, he's still a developmental guy. He's a rookie out of Florida State. Right now, it's Devondre Campbell's job, and we'll see what kind of shape Dre Greenlaw is in coming off the Achilles injury, likely sooner rather than later, based on the way that the 49ers are talking. We can move to the defensive backfield, where Renardo Green has officially taken over for Isaac Yiadom. That's been a big shift for San Francisco over the first half of the season. Yiadom, the veteran, they signed him coming from New Orleans. Green, the rookie, also from Florida State, like Tatum Bethune. First few games of the season, Green was, just baby steps, working his way in slowly. He's now getting the snap count over Isaac Yiadom. So he's the outside corner whenever they move the nickel. They're nickel about 70% of the time. When that's the case, Diamador Lenore has played nickel back. He has slid inside. So Renardo Green has taken that outside cornerback position. Now, with Charvarius Ward, and we'll list Charvarius Ward in the pink shade here because he is away, obviously, after the death of his 1-year-old daughter, Amani Joy. They're not going to have Ward this weekend. So it looks like it's going to be Isaac Yiadom taking over for Charvarius Ward at one of the starting cornerback positions. I think they're still going to be moving Diamador Lenore inside on nickel, and I think that just means that Renardo Green is going to be playing outside cornerback for San Francisco on probably a full-time basis against Tampa Bay. This week, the 49ers, I think, don't have to sweat all that much about losing Charvarius Ward because Tampa Bay is down its top 2 receivers, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. If the 49ers, if there were ever a week where they could survive without Charvarius Ward, it's this one. Tampa Bay, up until the final drive of the game against Kansas City on Monday night, had 2 completions to wide receivers. The longest one was 1 for 12 yards to Sterling Shepard. So Cade Otton is the leading receiver that's available for Tampa Bay at this time. That means that 49ers safety coverage is probably going to be more important. Malik Mustafa has been awesome so far, by the way. Jair Brown started slow, has gotten better. The 49ers have really insulated the safety position through the practice squad recently. They added Adrian Amos, the veteran. They've added Tashawn Gibson Sr., the veteran. So obviously the 49ers are bracing themselves for potentially needing some reinforcements at safety. The Talanoa Hufanga situation is extremely interesting because we've heard, Mike Silver reported, I know last week that, or 2 weeks ago, that Talanoa Hufanga was not expected to be back this year. Then the 49ers said, no, we do expect him to be back this year. He hasn't played a whole lot of football since last November, so in a calendar year, because it's been the ACL and now the wrist injury. So what the 49ers have here at safety is what they're rolling with, plus what they've added in the veterans Gibson and Adrian Amos. And I think the safety position is going to be really, really important this weekend as they face a team that is led by tight end production when it comes to receiving and Cade Otton. So Baker Mayfield's going to be looking to Cade Otton. Is he going to try to test the 49ers corners without Charvarius Ward? Obviously he is, but no Mike Evans and no Chris Godwin. That's 110 catches down there for Tampa Bay. That's not good, and I do think that it gives the 49ers at least somewhat of an advantage heading into Tampa Bay with the secondary. But, how about the rookie revolution? And the rookies are shaded in green on this roster. Renardo Green and Malik Mustafa have assumed essential starting roles in this 49ers defensive backfield that is the most loaded 49ers DB room, especially at the cornerback position, the most loaded room that they've had since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over. The 49ers are number 2 in the NFL in pass defense efficiency by DVOA and by EPA. So they're number 2 in the entire league when it comes to pass defense. And somebody like Malik Mustafa is actually leading the league in yards per cover snap allowed. He's allowed the fewest yards per cover snap of any DB or any defensive player in the entire NFL. Is that still a small sample size thing? Possibly. But I think it's time to give Malik Mustafa some flowers for how he's handled the rookie transition into the NFL. Meanwhile, Renardo Green has earned himself a starting job for the 49ers. I should put up the actual chart that I have from the San Francisco Standard when I wrote about the defense, because I think that this fits really, really well right now. The headline was, is this one of the best secondaries in football? The answer to that question, I think, is yes. And we can scroll down here and look to see what the 49ers have done in terms of coverage. Take a look at this. The safeties are down at the bottom. Yards per cover snap, 0.12. That's a minuscule amount allowed by Malik Mustafa, the best number in the league. And then you go to the cornerback room. Look, the lower numbers are obviously better in both rating allowed and yards per cover snap allowed. Renardo Green at 0.83. They say that 1.1 is generally good. You want to keep it under 1.1. And Isaac Yiadom had done that, but Renardo Green has been even better. Look at the rating that Deommodore Lenoir has allowed, 63.4. Malik Mustafa even lower. That one pick that he had against the Seattle Seahawks where he ran out of bounds right after, that's helped him out, 46.6. So really, really good stuff from the 49ers rookies in that defensive backfield. Before I move over to the offense, Mike sent me a video. Tristan Wirfs, the very, very good Tampa Bay left tackle, talked about some of the challenges that the 49ers defensive line brings. Why don't we have a listen in to Tristan Wirfs speaking in Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I think you should go out and keep your quarterback safe. I don't know if I think anything different, really. I think the Niners they all got great get up. They're flying off the ball. So I think you just got to get out for tackles. You got to get out to the junction point, the set point, whatever you want to call it. Beat them to the spot. But Bosa's great with his hands. Insane get off. Bends the edge really well. He's got power. He stays low. So it's all sorts of stuff you got to be ready for. But that's how it is every week. So this is the NFL. Ain't no slaps around. Right. So it's gonna be fun. We played him past 2 years. They've had great defensive lines for the past 2 years. Past forever, pretty much. So yeah, you just gotta come ready to play. We know it's a big test for us up front, like it was this past week. Just come out ready to play and doing our job to the best of our ability. And if we keep 6 upright, then we'll probably be all right.
Tristan Wirfs, he's a really, really good player. 49ers, you could argue that the mistake they made in 2020 wasn't trading DeForest Buckner, but it was not picking Tristan Wirfs with the selection that they got in exchange for DeForest Buckner from the Indianapolis Colts. Instead, I thought they made the mistake that year of just trying to replace position with position instead of best player available. And you could make a strong case that Tristan Wirfs was the best player available at the time for the 49ers, but instead he is with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he's a very good left tackle. You heard him talking about Bosa's get off. Nick Bosa's get off this year has been measured as the fastest over the past 7-8 years, however long NFL Next Gen Stats has been tracking it. So Bosa's playing fantastically well. Like I said, he leads the NFL in pressures coming against true pass sets this season. Tampa Bay is going to try to run the ball against the 49ers defense plentifully. They've got a couple running backs that it's a two-headed monster. Bucky Irving, the rookie, Rashad White. They're both going to get after it because if you don't have Mike Evans, if you don't have Chris Godwin, if Jalen McMillan is also hurt, I know he's dealing with an injury right now, and Sterling Shepard is your top receiver for Tampa Bay, and you've got to be creative making up for that with the run game. So it's going to be a test for the 49ers defensive line working against this Tampa Bay front, trying to stop the runs. They could set up some pass rushing situations, but I think that when we talk about the 49ers roster, somebody like Bosa against Wirfs, it's a great matchup, obviously. But elsewhere, the 49ers should have some advantages against Tampa Bay. Luke Gadecki is the right tackle. You know who the backup swing tackle is for the Bucs? Justin School. Those of you who follow the 49ers closely, those of you who've been watching my roster update videos, taking a look at the depth chart, you should recognize Justin School's name. He is not there. So I have to get back to this for you. Sorry if that disappeared for a second. We lost our window. So I have to share the screen again. Here we go. There you go. 49ers offense now. We can move over to the other side of the ball. Thanks to Mike for that, and also credit to River Wells for that video of Tristan Wirfs talking about the 49ers front. Speaking of that 49ers front, why don't we discuss them, just because I think they've been a lot better than people have given them credit for. The 49ers cumulatively along the offensive line rank number 8 in a lot of these composite pass protection metrics. I wrote about this as well up on the San Francisco Standard. This is from my piece on the 49ers offense. Here's the breakdown of how the line has performed. Darker colors are better. Right side of the offensive line, way better than last year. Run block percentile is over 80 for Dominic Purdy, over 70 for Colton McKivitz, over 80 for Aaron Banks, 80 for Trent Williams. Jake Brendel's at 64. Now, percentile is how many linemen are you better than on a percentage basis than your peers at respective positions. So the 49ers looking excellent across the board there. Now, the pass blocking percentile is not quite as good, but pass blocking in the league is struggling in general right now. Banks and McKivitz are the only ones who are below average, but McKivitz has improved big time since last year. And again, there are a lot of different ways to look at this. The 49ers pass blocking, according to the composite metrics, if you look at all 5 linemen and realize that other teams have holes up front too, is ranked number 8, from the 20s up to number 8 this season. So it's going to be a cool matchup with Tampa Bay, who's got Vita Vea on the inside, because so many people talk about the potential issues that the 49ers face whenever they face a big, strong interior defensive lineman, and Vea probably qualifies for that descriptor better than anybody in the league. This is a very interesting test for Jake Brendel, for Aaron Banks, for Dominic Purdy. These guys have, again, cumulatively, these guys have not been bad this year. In fact, I would say they've been good this year, especially after the first couple of weeks. They settled in after that game against Minnesota. Brendel did especially. John Feliciano might be activated this week. He's already been at practice. His practice window's been open. He could really improve the depth of the 49ers offensive line. Other guys on this list, I mean, you look over here, these are backups. I got some interesting intel, though, on Spencer Burford. The Texans were interested in trading for Spencer Burford. The 49ers said no. 49ers said no, we want to keep our young lineman. I know that he struggled last year, but they still see potential developmental value in Burford. And, I think there's just a testament to the fact, I've said this a lot, offensive linemen, good offensive linemen are a much shorter supply in the world of football right now than good defensive linemen. So the 49ers were able to pick up a defensive lineman on the trade market in Khalil Davis, but they didn't want to part ways with even if it's a struggling offensive lineman, they didn't want to part ways with him because they see the potential there and they see that the market there is skewed toward a scarcity. So that's just a little bit of a nugget that I picked up coming out of the trade deadline. Burford is depth for the 49ers. He's the first guard off the bench. So is Ben Barch. Nick Zakel still on the team. Jalen Moore is the swing tackle for the 49ers. When Feliciano returns, whose spot does he take? I'm guessing Ben Barch's spot, especially given what we know about Spencer Burford. But I'm not. Somebody could get hurt between now and then, or the 49ers can carry 10 offensive linemen. You never know how this is going to shake out. So let's just wait and see what their plan for John Feliciano actually is. I do know that San Francisco has 3 full weeks to activate John Feliciano. They don't have to do it this week if they don't feel that it makes sense with what they're working with roster-wise. All right, moving forward, let's go to the tight end position. 49ers currently have 4 on the 53-man roster. Kittle's having close to, you can't say that it's a career year, I guess, technically, because he had those massive, massive seasons where he was the 49ers featured receiver in back half of 2017, 2018, and 2019. I get it. But boy, I mean, it's been impressive for George Kittle. Let's just look at his stats. Let's look at George Kittle's stats year over year. Could open them on Pro Football Reference. This is the fun stuff right now. We could look at his touchdowns year over year. We can look at his yards per game year over year. The touchdowns. So this year, George Kittle has 6 receiving touchdowns. His career high was in 2022 with 11, and we're not even halfway through the year right now. So early in his career, George Kittle was racking up yardage. He had 1,377 yards, a record at the time in 2018, another 1,000-yard season in 2019. Then he didn't hit 1,000 again until 2023. 2022, when he had 765 yards, that was 11 touchdowns. But even in the years where he was awesome with the yardage early on, like the 1,377 yard season was a 5 touchdown catch season for George Kittle. So there you have it. He's already surpassed the touchdown total from then. This year was 6, and he's on pace to have the most touchdowns that he's ever recorded. Remember, he had 3 against Dallas last year early on, and it looked like he was going to shatter the 2022 mark, but he played the back half of last season very, very hurt. I think you saw a glimpse into that with the Netflix receiver series. Now George Kittle is healthy. He's at 6 touchdowns. He's at 503 yards. So he's on pace for another 1,000-yard season, and he's also on pace for about 13 touchdowns. This could be the high watermark for George Kittle as far as scoring. His reception success percentage is as high as it's ever been. This is a good number for you. Success percentage of receptions is how many times receivers target it. Does that turn into an actual catch? Back in 2018, when Kittle had all that yardage, his success percentage was only 56.6%. That increased to 65.1%, his career high prior to this year in 2020. This season, he's at 67.3%. So Kittle is getting better and better and better. He's now in his age 31 season for the 49ers. Anyway, back to the roster for San Francisco. Kittle, Saubert's the tight end too. As long as Kittle is healthy, he's going to take the vast majority of the tight end receiving targets with him. Now, Saubert's been a good blocker. I know that they had the pass protection issue where there was the hold that called back the Deebo Samuel touchdown against Dallas. But other than that, Jake, I think Eric Saubert has done a good job for the 49ers. They've got Tonjes and Willis behind him. The receiving room is where this gets really, really fascinating. Conley's currently hurt. He's out with the hamstring, right? So you've got Deebo Sam, and Conley's the X, and Brandon Ayuk was the X too. He's done for the season. Who plays the X position? Is Ricky Pearsall going to step in there? Or are they going to move Jawan Jennings, coming back from injury, who Tom Brady called one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL? Are they going to move Jawan Jennings into the X and then move Ricky Pearsall and a combination of Pearsall and Jacob Cowing into that F position? It's the X, the Z, the F, the third receiver, the slot receiver. I think Deebo Samuel's at home in that Z position. So as long as he's healthy, you have Deebo Samuel there. Jawan Jennings, though, has already shown us when Deebo was hurt against the Rams and Jennings went off in a historic performance. Jawan Jennings has already shown us that he has the adaptability to play a position that is not naturally his own position. Now, these guys all cross-train. These guys all work at different spots so they're ready to go and plug in anywhere else. But they still have their home spots. And I think for somebody like Jawan Jennings, the home spot has been the F. But I think that he has the separation ability. He might not have the straight line speed of a true top end burner, but I think he's got the separation ability to give the 49ers a good look at X. He can definitely block like a good X receiver in Shanahan's scheme. So what are they going to do this week? Jennings is coming back. Conley won't be available. Brandon Ayuk is obviously done for the year. Is it going to be Jennings in that X spot? I think that's the most likely thing that the 49ers do. But I also think, I talked to Ricky Pearsall yesterday in the locker room, not an interview, we're just chatting. He said they repped the out pattern where Purdy threw the ball while Pearsall was still in the stem of his route before he broke and looked. It was a great cohesion right on the play. He said that they repped that play several times in practice, but not nearly as much as they would have repped it had Ricky Pearsall been available all season long. And to me, it was just fascinating stuff because Ricky told me the more and more they rep, the more they're going to be able to throw with anticipation on other routes. He said, yeah, that was the out route, but we could start throwing with anticipation on some in breakers. I mean, there was remember the Brandon Ayuk touchdown last year where they threw an anticipatory post cut throw on a post against Seattle. That was on Thanksgiving. Sealed the game against the Seahawks. Ayuk leaned out, cut back in. Football's already there on the post pattern near the hash. I mean, the amount of trust it takes to do this on an outside throw is something. The amount of trust it takes to do that on a throw inside toward the safeties in the middle of the field is something entirely different. Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk had that chemistry, especially last year when Brandon Ayuk showed up to training camp. This season, I don't think that Ayuk and Purdy had the same rapport. It might have been building back up toward that, but then Ayuk got hurt. This season, the 49ers are looking for that to be replaced by other combinations of quarterback and receivers. So Jawan Jennings and Purdy, great rapport that we had seen before Jennings suffered that hip injury in Seattle. Pearsall and Purdy building that rapport, great start against the Cowboys. And based on what Ricky told me about so many of the nuances of receiving play and the things that he's working on right now with Brock Purdy, I think that more is coming between Ricky Pearsall and the 49ers star quarterback. Now we go to how about Jacob Cowing. Against Kansas City, he had a couple catches that were extremely promising. Didn't have nearly as big of a role against Dallas. Where does Cowing fit into the larger picture of things, especially if somebody like Jennings is playing at the X? Does that give Cowing more time at the F? I think so. I think it might still be dependent on what's happening from week-to-week basis, matchups, how the 49ers are trying to figure things out. Because Cowing is a smaller framed receiver. Jennings is somebody who's big enough to block anybody, so you could throw him in anywhere. Ricky Pearsall isn't small either. Ricky Pearsall's 6'1". I think he's probably close to 200 pounds at this point. I know he weighed 190 at the combine. So Pearsall, you probably can throw in into straight blocking situations a little bit more often. Cowing resembles the gadget weapon type more than any other receiver that's on this 49ers 53-man roster. But I do think, and I said this when they drafted him, he's got more bulk to him than somebody like Ray McLeod, who was a straight gadget weapon for the 49ers. I think they believe that Jacob Cowan can stay on the field in certain situations after he develops into the type of blocker the 49ers need him to be. So it's going to be really fascinating for me to see how they use Jacob Cowing, because I think it's going to evolve over the course of the back half of this season as he integrates himself further into the 49ers offense. Now, they needed a little bit more depth at this position because Tariq Owens is a project. I don't think he's going to be playing this year. Trent Taylor is basically a punt return backup. He's an emergency punt returner, so he's on the practice squad for that reason. Chris Conley is currently hurt, so both of your top X receivers are out. So that they needed somebody else in that receiving room to really shore things up. They didn't want to use draft capital on somebody like Kendrick Bourne, so they went and signed Russell Gage to the practice squad. That's an intriguing signing. I mean, 4'4". We talk about somebody who could run at 4'4", but has a little bit more bulk and can probably also block. Russell Gage fits that descriptor. Now, he also played for Tampa Bay, so immediately the 49ers are playing against the Bucs. I don't think a Gage is going to be active for the 49ers this quickly, but it is some of the receiving depth that they've needed at the position. Finally, this is the running back position. This is where Christian McCaffrey is going to re-enter the mix. Everything's still going well for Christian McCaffrey, as I reported at the top of the show. Mason and Garendo can ease the load off of McCaffrey as he comes back. The 49ers didn't have this kind of luxury in the past, especially, though, now that you've added Garendo, who's an outside zone specialist with the speed and the burst. He's also got good hands. I mean, he used to be a receiver. He really gives you a potential substitute for Christian McCaffrey to not have to throw Christian to the wolves with 30 touches in his first game. Mason is Jordan Mason. He remains an impressive back. Mike sent me another really good stat. The top 10 running backs in missed broken tackles, Jordan Mason is at number 5 with 35. And he's an upper right guy in another chart. Maybe I can get this open for you. We'll save it and get it up on the screen. We shouldn't downplay how good Jordan Mason has been at shaking tackles. It really has been impressive to watch. And because of it, I do believe that the 49ers can continue to give him carries, just even when Christian McCaffrey returns and assumes a full role. They can continue to give Jordan Mason change of pace carries that can be very, very effective for this football team. If only I could find my Jordan Mason image that I just tried to save to my computer, we'd be in a lot better position. Unfortunately, this just tells me that I need to do a big... Oh, here it is. Good. We got it. All right. Take a look at this. How good are running backs after contact? So you want to be further to the right, more yards after contact, and further up, more missed broken tackles happening if you're there. That's where Mason is. Circling him with my cursor. Tank Bigsby all the way up in the upper right. So Mason has been a really, really nice back for the 49ers this year. I know that the fumble against Arizona hurt this team. I know that he's had some ball security issues, but boy, the 49ers have to be happy with this, and now they're going to be able to have it as a change of pace back up to Christian McCaffrey. Looking at who San Francisco is playing, Rachaad White over here. Bucky Irving, the rookie, I think has been outplaying Rachaad White. Bucky Irving is up in the upper right corner. A much higher missed broken tackle rate, but both Tampa Bay backs are good after contact. Finally, I said we're going to go through the entire 49ers roster, so we make it up to the quarterback position. Purdy having another really good year. It's going to be exciting to see what heights he can take this to with Christian McCaffrey back in tow for the 49ers. I also promised the 49ers salary cap update. We're going to go to that right now. San Francisco currently has, according to my calculations, $51.3 million of 2024 salary cap space. Now, any space that the 49ers do not use this season will be carried over into the future, which they need to pay Brock Purdy and pay a whole bunch of other guys. These are their 2025 books. They only have $11.4 million of projected space that year. So carrying over the $50 million or so, however much they don't use, they can still spend some this year on signees. Carrying over whatever they don't use is going to really help them be financially sustainable next year. One thing that's really interesting about my salary cap sheet is the IR cap hits. So you can see here, the 49ers, this is the list of players on IR, a pup. There are close to $50 million of expenditures there. So the amount of salary cap space that they have is equal to the amount of money that's currently on IR or a pup. That said, Christian McCaffrey set to come off of the injury list soon. Yetur Gross-Matos soon. Dre Greenlaw soon. That's really going to make the 49ers financial situation a whole lot healthier. So just wanted to pass that along. Where else can you get a roster update and a 49ers salary cap update all in the same spot? Everybody, thanks for watching. Time for me to roll. We'll talk to you very soon.